Start.
I think I'm gonna have to move districts, so I don't want to take so long to get here.
So we'll go ahead and call the work session to order. And I guess, Bobby, is there anything you want to update from last week, or do we just need to go into the departments and then we can work on that later? Okay. So y'all got the agenda, so we'll go down this way and start with Mayor's office.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, in the mayor's office, there's 8 of us plus the mayor. 2 of those are part-time. We're able to save a little money on our office supplies because we paid off our copy machine. I'm glad to answer any questions. This is a small one.
So are we adding any positions? I see an increase about 90,000 from salaries from last year.
No, sir, we added a new person probably about 3 months ago, Mr. Justin Searcy, but we have no plans to add anybody new.
Okay. Did we see that as a budget amendment so that that would be reflected in the,
Now, his salary for this few months, we worked out with the CFE grant.
okay,
And so it's absorbed that way.
okay. So we'll need, I guess Bobby had sent out earlier and I don't have that in front of me right now, but, so Mr. Searcy's position is in that staffing spreadsheet I'll distribute that to the rest of the council as well, but he's in there. Okay.
Okay.
The community development director,
That's Mr. Searcy.
that's Mr. Searcy.
Yes, sir.
What is his job? What's his job description?
Right now, he's about 90 days in. He's working on grants for community things of that nature. He's been working with the mobile farmers market, working with some ideas and foundation stuff on what to do with the depot. And that's kind of been where we started, and it's growing from there.
Okay.
He's taken over a lot of, so take probably more information you want, that's okay. When we started out 2 years ago and Lauren started out basically focused on that community development, she's transitioned more into performance management, data
Okay.
aggregation. And so she still works with the anti-poverty task force and then performance management. Justin's picking up the rest of those. So he's working with some of our public art, community development, so depot plans, grant opportunities downtown, things like that.
And I see here, so it looks like you guys want to reappropriate a portion of some salaries to the CFE.
Now, that was just for this term.
That was just, okay,
Yeah.
for the City Start grant?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So he's working in conjunction with the CFE?
He and Lauren both.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
He's right now performing a focus group with Lane and Lambeth students for depot ideas out in Ben Langford at this moment.
all right. That's what I had. I just saw the increase in salaries, just wanted to make sure
Yes, sir.
what we were doing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to stay up here with
Thank you.
Tom just in case? Yeah.
Oh, no.
For
no.
moral support
No,
for
I gotta-
Tom?
I gotta go do something with my hair.
Engineering is up.
Good afternoon, people.
Good afternoon.
I'm
Glad
gonna
we
try
got
to
this-
do it by memory.
Glad we
from
got
what I
this
put-
meeting in before Tom's surgery, so.
Yes.
Next week,
Yeah.
next week. Engineering's got 5 different departments. Engineering itself, there's 6 staff, including myself. Stormwater, I believe, has 10. Signals has 3, traffic science has 3, and then Wendy is our stormwater coordinator, or whatever you want to call. If you look at the sheet there, we are in a process right now, we have accepted resumes and applications to fill in the 2 spots that have been empty for stormwater. Talking to Jason, he's got 2 crews that work, one works piping and the other one works structures, and he's down, I believe, 1 body in each one. and the storm work isn't going away real fast. It just seems to be multiplying out in the field there. We're also one short on traffic signals. We did interview for that about 2 months ago. It's a former employee that used to work for the city. He has accepted the job, and I believe he went through orientation today, so we'll have the 4 bodies there. One other thing that I've kind of given an idea to since I've been here is taking a look at coming up with an inspector. When we are having paving work done, very, very few times do we have anybody available to go out there and actually watch them do the work, to guarantee that we're getting 1.5 inches of asphalt, the seams are tight, the rolling is being done properly. I'm a little concerned about that. Everywhere that I've had jobs in the previous, whenever a contractor worked, in the north mostly, when a contractor worked, an inspector worked. If the inspector wasn't available, the contractor didn't work. That's how we control the contractors and their level of competency on their work. When I came down here, I noticed that there's a lot more work, and it's harder to get a lot of inspectors because the city couldn't afford all the inspectors you need to do all the projects. So we did it on a part-time basis everywhere. To my knowledge, we have none. Alan does some inspection and does some looking at the pavement and stuff for us. I do work it with them. And then I also work with Jason and taking a look at a lot of storm sewer. But I think if we bring an inspector on, I'd like to put that inspector on watching all pavement and any infrastructure that the city is either responsible for, funding, or whatever else should come up. And then when that person is, when we've got a little leeway in paving or something, we can use him for other facets. Probably stormwater is what I'd like to do with it. So there's a couple of positions in here that we're refilling and one that I would like to take a look at and possibly doing. As far as the paving goes, right now we are in the process of putting together what we call a spring paving program. We have a grant of $1.5 million. The unfortunate part of it is we ended up spending about $252,000 on Ridgecrest when the trucks started coming off of I-40 when they were all backed up, and it just obliterated Ridgecrest. They came in and they had to go deep soil penetration, and we put in cement to really solidify it up, and I think it's done a good job. We have a program ready to go, and I just found out, and just over in talking to a couple of you at the board up there, is that the money that was budgeted, or was supposed to be budgeted for possible road next year of 1.506, I believe it was. I was working, Alan and I have talked. What I'd like to do, since we're probably not going to come to the council to ask for approval on a contract till July 1st, what I was hoping to do, this may change the way I want to look at it, is to beef up the spring program, bid more work. We'll get a better price because of quantities. But if we get the 1.5, I have a tendency of pulling back half of it because I like to do a spring paving program in a spring paving program. I don't want to burn all my budget with one paving program and hit spring and find out we got a disaster on a road and we don't have the finances to go ahead and fix it. So that's all up, and I guess I'll have to wait and see what the state does for their budget. But we are in the process of working on the paving schedule. I think it's pretty well in good shape. We just got to put the final quantities together and get that out. As far as stormwater, there's a lot of stormwater issues in this city. I work pretty closely with Jason to do that work. I try to get out to all the sites and look at them. Jason and I get along well when we look at this. There's a lot of work to be done there. And I know there's been talk about getting some control of what we have out there for storm sewer. I do know we have an awful lot of large diameter pipes, and I know we have an awful lot of corrugated metal pipe up there that has a shelf life of not enough. And what I'd really like to do is get a hands on what do we have, and my first priority personally would be to go after any corrugated metal in public streets. Because that takes care of the collapsing pipe, whatever else, and put either concrete or plastic. In roadways, my experience has always been to put reinforced concrete sewer pipes in areas where maybe a commercial development or something where you have traffic, you have some traffic, we use a stronger plastic pipe. And when you're in the turf areas, you don't need to spend a lot of money on on a thicker grade pipe because you can save some money and put that in there because all you have is dirt over the top. So those are some of the thoughts I've had. I'm still working on what I can come up with more and see what based on my experience. But it's been a challenge getting out there to take a look at all the stormwater. And if you as aldermen councilmen, whatever title you have, if you guys have any questions at all, any concerns at all, please get a hold of me or Cindy. The work will come down to me. I bring in Jason. When Wendy's necessary, I bring her in. And we work as a team trying to figure out what we gotta do and how best to do it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I've got some questions.
Yeah, so, as far as that inspector position, that's proposed, that's in this current budget.
It is
sheet.
not in there, but I'd like to add it in there.
Okay. We, while I would agree that, you know, there needs to be some accountability for the installation of any infrastructure that the city would ultimately take over. Yes, we need some way to make sure, you and I have talked about a couple of strategies on that, whether that's having the engineer of record, you know, be there to confirm that stormwater's put in the correct way. And the same thing for the roadways, to make sure that we're getting the surface and the binder and everything that we need. On our paving plan for this year, so we started, and I know you're new here relatively. We started 2 years ago with the plan to try to knock out all of our 1 and 2 rated streets on a scale of 1 to 10 over a 4-year cycle. Obviously, the pandemic put a damper on that. We dialed that back to just what you were speaking about, the $1.5 million this year. So am I hearing you correctly? All we've spent out of that $1.5 million this year is just Ridgecrest?
Yes.
Okay, so, then that brings another question. We saw a potential paving list, I think the mayor had sent one out. Is that for this year? I just wanna make sure I'm tracking.
That's for the spring program that I was looking at doing, and then doing a fall program.
So,
By the time we get
Yes.
to bid, it won't be up for council vote until July. By the
right,
time we bid it
okay,
out,
so
come
for
back,
this
yeah.
year, we haven't paved a street outside of, fixing Ridgecrest.
Full pave, no. We've
Okay.
done some spot repairs around storm sewer work that stormwater operations have done, but we have not carte blanche gone out there and said we're doing from point A to point B, 26
Okay.
feet wide.
So budget-wise, we're gonna have some continuation of these dollars on, and I think that's applicable per the grant. So we'll have that for next year, so we have
Correct.
1.25 left approximately
Yes.
for next year. I know that there's some conversations happening about whether or not we could get that again for the following year. Now, some of the calculations that the city engineer previously had talked about was that we were somewhere in the ballpark, and I'm pulling it out of my head, but $3.6 million was what we had allocated back 2 years ago to take care of that 25%. And so if we've deferred a year, we've had probably some additional roads that have slid into those 1 and 2 grades. What I'm interested in understanding is, what does it take to get out of this? Like, what is the cost to get out of this? And I know that's significant, and I know that there's significant cost to get out of our issues with stormwater as well. But I don't think we can make any informed decisions without understanding that cost. And so that's what I would hope that we could come to, is having some understanding of what the true cost or potential cost of this could be to get to where we're at a manageable level on this paving.
Council, we were looking at 3.7 on the
3 point,
start, and that was, if I remember correctly, the previous engineer said that cost would escalate. He put in 3.7 because that's what we had, that some of the larger surface areas were pushed off to where we could hopefully get to that, the windfall of the debt service drop off. So the cost would increase, I think, if I remember, 21 or 22 million for the
Yeah.
1 and 2 streets.
And I think that's important, is that we have this period of relief that's coming. And we've heard, and a week ago, we heard the police department talk about it. And I think where we're going is that there seems to be the idea that there's gonna be a lot of opportunity, but that opportunity is finite as well. And so we need to be able to balance that. You know, the things that I get calls on, you know, 60% of it deals with your department, you know, with paving, stormwater. Those are the things that we're really dealing with. And so, you know, we need to develop here in the next year, develop this plan. Now, I know there's been some discussion about storm drainage inspections as well, like with a camera and kind of getting in some of these larger diameter pipes.
Yes.
Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, we work in conjunction with Jackson Environmental Authority. Our stormwater guys have bought a wheeled apparatus that they can put on the camera for larger pipe diameter. We've got a couple areas that we want to go out and take a look because we're having some flooding in the area, and we don't know what the pipe size are downstream and what the conditions are. So we're going to take advantage of that. There's a couple other small projects that we're going to use that for. Ultimately, I think we may need to use it more frequently just to get an inventory of what we have.
Yeah.
And you were talking previously, and I know you and I talked about the stormwater issues in private developments, et cetera.
Right.
In the past, what I've done to put the developer's engineer on record for that work, for the design and confirmation it's been constructed, we always required the developer's engineer to provide a letter to the city indicating that the stormwater management features have been designed and installed in accordance with the approved plans. He then certifies that as a professional engineer in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. I think that's really important.
Yes.
You know, because you're gonna see, and we've seen that, you know, not everything's put into the specifications, especially that we call for. And sometimes you get out there, and the development's happening, and, you know, cost has to be cut, and that's something that no one sees. And so that's the potential that we need to figure out, how do we control that better? I agree.
And I know when Alan was working up the list and with my assistants, we did look at the streets a number of times together, and we were working on the ones and the twos. I want to say when Dusty was here in the interim basis, I think he took the whole master list of ones through whatever the top number was and put a number to the whole program. And I knew, if I remember correctly, the number was well into the tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
To touch every street that needed and scored to be repaired.
Yeah.
It was $100 million where it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was about 50 sticks in my mind now.
That was for the 1 and 2s, was 50 for all of them.
Okay,
I
okay.
think, yeah, we get 60, I think was where we were, 80, when you add all the additional fees to it.
The other thing we can do too is that we can go ahead, we've developed some unit costs, that's how we developed the cost and gave the council the list of what streets we wanted to do. I can work with Alan, what we can do is go through all the ones and twos and put a dollar and cent to the ones and twos, and I think that'll give you a better idea of where we sit with the worst roads we have in the city.
That's a good idea.
We can provide that.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I can do that.
Mr. Chairman. Hi, Mr. Wolf.
Hi.
Good to see you. I have a couple of questions and then just one suggestion. On the inspector, everything that you said, that sounded fantastic. Would that also include when a developer is in a subdivision before the city takes over that road? Would that inspector, would that be one of his responsibilities to make sure the paving and that road, and include the piping, be up to your, I think, new requirements
That,
before
excuse me.
that, no, but anyway, before that road goes to, and is turned over to the city?
Correct. Now, the way I understand it with Jackson Environmental Engineer Associates, or I'll just go GEA.
Yeah.
I knew I do that all the time too. No, I'm not dyslexic. But
Yeah.
I believe they provide their own inspectors for their work. We don't, I believe, follow any of the sanitary sewer and water. But when it comes to the paving and comes to the final approval process, I've always had an inspector, and we used to do it as a team. In my last job, we had sewer, water, storm. All of us would walk the job site, and if there's anything that was damaged or need to be fixed, we call it a punch list. We put it on a punch list. The developer's engineer and contractor complete it. When it's finished, we do another inspection. If it isn't done to our satisfaction, we give them another punch list. And then that way we know, and we're certified by our own people, know that the work has been done in association with the plans and specifications. I know Jason has had some issues in the past where the inlets haven't been exactly built to standard. And I think by getting an inspector and being trained it's not, you don't need a master's degree to do the inspection. And if we have a qualified and a good inspector, we should be able to catch all of the mistakes before they become ours a year after we accept the streets and the subdivision as part of the city infrastructure.
That's just really on top of my list, because if there was a way that we could really stay on top of the new developments, the inlets and the outlets, that's another area that I think that we need to look at long-term.
Correct.
You know, definitely. So I was just wondering, with the inspector, with the metal pipes that you're thinking of, and the wheeled apparatus, this amount to really bring things up to where they need to be is enormous.
Yes.
But is there a way that we could start developing, like you said, the 1 and 2, the worst, and then maybe a 3-year plan and then a 10-year plan? I just feel like it's so important that we have got to start really addressing how important this is. And we can't do it all at one time.
Correct.
But we can start to make plans for it. How are we gonna get there? How are we gonna pay for it? I mean, to me, I feel like that's really important, and it would help me and my constituents if I could say, look, we know there's a problem, and we're doing the best we can, and they're dealing with it, and we've got a new engineer and hopefully this new inspector.
What I'd like to do, if this would help, is I can put together the 1s and the 2s, so we have an instant picture of where we are with those scoring numbers. We can also go back into it, and mind you, it'll be cost based on today's dollars and cents, not projecting forward. But we can go through and we can take the 3s and the 4s. We can actually develop a cost estimate for the 3s and the 4s and the 5s, so that we have them by point score in a, say, okay, it's 15 million for the 4s and 2 million for the 5s. And we have the ability of doing that, because we do have the master list. It's like 17 pages long, I believe.
Well, those 3s and 4s are gonna become 1s and 2s, so if we
Correct.
can get a hold of that.
Correct.
Anyway, I appreciate it, and that's just a suggestion, but I really hope we can work in that way
Okay,
with the new people that we've hired and with your expertise.
thank you.
Any additional questions for Tom? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Tom.
Council.
Next up is Street Department, so Percy and Johnny.
That's just my main thing. I mean, I've got a huge one.
Same here, same, I mean, it's, those are the things that everybody cares about.
Y'all setting that back, took a long time to get up here.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, how y'all
Good
doing?
afternoon.
Basically, what we're doing today is our budget is basically the same. We didn't do much as we normally do because of the pandemic, but the line items from what we actually work off of is the same. There was no changes. We lost a few personnel, but we may have added 2 more back. But for us, that everything's just about the same on the lines. We're working with the same money,
Okay. Man, you do a lot of things, don't you?
a whole lot of things.
Can you share with us just kind of what your responsibilities are?
Okay, our responsibilities are, which could have wrote a list for you, but, we do maintenance, alley maintenance, street maintenance, we cut the grass right away, we cut the grass on the state routes, we do the sweeping, we do the emergency on call after hours, during hours, depends on whenever the call come. We do the storms, all of them, from snow, ice, rain, lightning, whatever, salting, oil spills, we work. Emergency management call us most of the time. We have to, it used to be engineering guys, to send a person out there now. Johnny go until we get to talk to the new engineer, but basically we got the asphalt, the concrete, right-of-ways. We got, if you spill something in the street, we go get that up. If a tree limb is hitting the bus, we gotta cut that. I mean, it goes on, it don't stop. I mean, we got some hard-working guys. I can give you some numbers, tickets from July to now. Just the maintenance crews, not the construction. They closed 8,493 chickens. That's just 8 guys working. So, you know, we pretty busy. We help out a lot if we can, depends on what it is. Sometimes if a person call you and they need 3 or 4 things done, I try to at least give them one. We in control of all the dead trees on the side of right away. If a dead tree there, if we can't get it down, then I'll call a tree company and we'll get it down their way. It's a lot of stuff. I'm probably missing some stuff, but we got a lot of stuff to do here, plenty.
One of the
Just call.
things that we, maybe y'all can speak to this, on the lawsuit, the ADA lawsuit that we had, y'all rebuild a lot of the sidewalks, isn't that right?
It's Johnny.
So I know, if we look at that lawsuit, the language doesn't, it specifies like an amount of work to do. And I'm just, are we tracking up on that work, on like how much we're accomplishing each year?
Johnny, kind of talk where we were 2 years ago on the tracking and then where we are now, what we do.
Yeah, I keep good track now. Let me see, I think I brought
I think the most, what we did from prior to was looking at dollar amounts per year, and now we actually look at linear feet and the volume of work, not just the dollar amount.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like your curb ramps, we required to do from 100 to, I think it's 150 a year within the fiscal year. And where we at now, we right at 84,
okay,
which is pretty good due to the pandemic that we had. Sidewalk, we're gonna make it again. We made it last year and made it year 4 last. So I think we're gonna do pretty good on that. We down to 1 crew. I have 1 crew as far as ADA, and a lot of times I had to pull that crew off to do other things such as some of the modification, what it's calling, like at the police department or civic center or something like that, and then we had to pull them off. I got a crew now over at TR White, so that kind of stops the ADA because of the shortness. The asphalt, the infrared is really doing well with it. We did from October when we first purchased it. We actually repaired 113 potholes. It's actually fixed.
that permanent patch.
Permanent, right. And due to, in November, your asphalt plants, it'll close up from November to the 1st of March. So we really just got back in it good, so I thought that was pretty good there, as far as the infrared.
How's that thing working? I mean, I was under the impression that we were gonna kind of have a man versus machine kind of analysis of this, like how are the patches holding up? How is the time that we're putting into this? Is the machine, is it worth the dollars that we paid for it?
It's worth it. It's
Yeah.
worth it. Actually, to fix a cut, that chamber is 12 by 13, and it actually costs $24 just to do a permanent fix.
Yeah,
And most of that is propane.
yeah,
Material, we saving a lot on material.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not having to bring in any asphalt or anything like that.
Right. Only if we repairing something that's already low and we have to add to it.
Okay,
So in a little less than 3 months, you've done 113 permanent repairs.
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
And that really should that's gonna lower the cost too. I mean, I always think of that, that's lowering our cost overall.
When you
Right.
look at the long 12-month thing, it'll be,
Yeah, once we
It'll
get to
make a
the
whole
season that
lot
we
of
have it
difference.
available,
Yes.
then we'll be able to see a big difference, a dramatic
It'll
change
make a
from
big
getting in the
difference.
fall.
rather than
I
those
agree.
asphalt coming back out and it just staying in there and we have to go back.
Right.
It's saving on our time too.
Yes.
So if we gotta go back to a hole, it's manpower time and then
Manpower time.
using more asphalt because it washed out or froze out or whatever. But when you do a permanent, you really don't have to go back. So
think
they're
that's
saving
great.
on manpower too. It was an excellent idea to get this piece of machine. It helps out a lot
Yeah.
from going back and forth all the time. We have fixed holes several times. So it's saving us too.
On the ADA walkway, so are we looking at, you know, when I read through that lawsuit, it seems like there's opportunities for us to knock out a bunch of I would call it low-hanging fruit, you know, bunch of
Right.
layups. And those are like, you know, clearing debris, clearing, you know, overgrowth on some sidewalks, that kind of, so do y'all keep up with like how many linear feet of that you've cleaned up and how much you've had to repair, replace?
Right, I tracks all of that, which that's on a Civic, obstruction.
Okay,
And that's where it take care of, if we, just like a street that needs cleaning, we can get a crew out there just to clean it, and it may call for 200 feet, and that street may be 800 feet. And we clean that 200 feet and claim the whole 800 feet. So,
Okay.
and that's what they look at.
okay. Now, do y'all have any additional positions or anything you're requesting this year?
We requested one position, that was, the field night sweeper. What we was doing is, during the pandemic, and then we hit, you know, we was going through some times. I fixed it up where we can run it in the daytime, but we got streets that need to be swept at night, like your main streets where you can't get down because of traffic, like Van Drive or, Howland or whatever, where it's a lot of traffic, and plus the state routes, which is a state contract, we had to sweep those, we were sweeping those and taking care of the contract, but at the same time, you got residential and all this that we need to sweep too, so we getting back to making sure we taking care of the residents and the main streets, so we can go around a few times. We wasn't getting many calls because everybody was trapped in the house, but now we're getting calls, so.
Yeah.
I got approval to get that guy back, and we can
Okay.
go back to work. We also in charge of cleaning the inlets too, so. And sweeper can get some of them, but they can't get all of them, so we'll go get some of those. We know all every areas that's flooding. I got a map and a sheet that we'll go and get those before it rains. Every time a storm comes, it's all hands on deck. We stop what we're doing to go take care of that.
Yeah.
That right there, and then when we get through doing what we do, we go back to our normal work routine.
Okay. That's all I had.
Any other questions for Johnny and Percy?
Y'all were doing a great job.
I think,
Really
Thank you.
are.
did it?
That's it,
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
Keep it up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnny Black with the socks on today.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have with me Mark Mingledorf. If you have questions regarding Westwood Athletics, Tennis Center, or Tennis Complex, he can help you with that. Terry Smith, the Director at T.R. White Sportsplex, Bridget, South Jackson, Bemis, also our programming, our after-school programs, our summer camps. Of course, Terry runs the summer camp also. Recreation Department, we lost an employee, which was fine, but we gained an employee. We have a new employee, Christy David. She is a great employee that was added. The mayor's office, we talked about, once we reshifted and redid some reorganization, she is our community engagement director. And also, she is responsible for our Facebook page. If you would go to our Facebook, you will see all the postings. We're constantly posting the activities we're doing and the results of people participating. Also, she's coordinating with other groups. We are partnering with International Festival, which we've been doing that. Also, we are partnering with Farmers Market, of course, is part of us, but she's involved in the mobile marketing aspect of that. Also, we are very involved in Jackson Beautiful. We got Earth Day coming. So her responsibilities have been really, really good, and we've developed relationships that we've had. We've already had relationship with certain organizations like soccer, with the African Street Festival, et cetera. So we work closely with those. The overall recreation, It's been a very trying year because people wanted to get out. I can give you an update. We now have our facilities back open. They're gradually building up activities in them with some degree of still of protocol. We're starting our programming. We're going to do our summer camp this year. We registered this past the 15th for Westwood. We wanted to do half the number. Normally at Westwood, it would be about what? 185. About 185, so we did 100. Had a couple of parents, we had a 90 threshold, and a couple of parents, it's about 10 of them, so we said, come on, we'll do 100. T.R. White normally does about 250, so he's gonna do about 140, 135, and they're registering now. Everything is done online now. There's no more getting up at 2 in the morning, because the camps are so good, people wanted to get their kids in, so that went well. They're still registering at T.R. White. That's been a little slow, but the numbers are picking up. We're going to keep it open for a couple of days. Of course, we did some projects that you all are aware of that we did get finished with the 7 pillars, the dog park. We had some money left in the dog park budget, and I just ordered the addition. I met with that group. I ordered some additional items that they wanted for the dog park, and that's already ordered and coming. We had about $19,000 left, and I ordered about $15,000 worth of items. The remainder, we're going to do some marketing. The state has allowed and hadn't got back with me for us to put it on the interstate exits. We can't put it on the interstate because those are destination attractions. But when you exit up, you can have an item on those signs that'll point you like 1.2 miles to the dog. We have the signs up. Overall, in terms of the Recreation Administration budget, there are some increases you'll see, particularly probably security. Security used to be in the, I don't know why it was over there, it just was there. It was in the maintenance, park maintenance budget. And when they budgeted, it was like 59,000. That was a few years back. But now the contract that we have with Max Guard, they are covering 9 of our parks, which means they close them, they lock them, and the rate that's per contract is $23.43 an hour with a car and an armed guard. And so to actually have that covered, I had to increase that line. And they do a good job. They lock all our restrooms. I had to add a couple of parks. Melissa's, we never used to have a little problem down there, but then recently, in the past 6 months, 7 months, kids been going in the bathrooms and kind of doing a little damage, so I told Max to add that to the list. And they do the tennis complex. They close all our parks, and they do a great job. And I can watch the ones we got cameras on, and I see them there with the flashing lights getting people out. So that's pretty much where we're at. If you have questions.
So what are we looking at as far as the new park that we built in Bemis a couple of years ago, now has a little
Bemis
walking
Memorial.
trail. Bemis
Okay,
Memorial.
good question. I met with the Bemis Historical Society. They invited me to come out and speak. And of course, they ask for stuff, which is good stuff.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah. They wanted a flagpole.
Right?
We had a flagpole that we never put up at another site. Kurt fixed it up, refurbished. It's up. They're happy. They said that on the track, when the sun goes down a little bit, it's so dark on one end. I got with JEA, and they're going to be putting lights around the track there.
Right.
Also, let me give you an update on the playground grant money that we got. Thanks to Bridget with her relationship with AmeriGroup. The specs have already been sent to purchasing. She put it out for an RFP, and so what's going to happen on the 5th of May, they're going to open it. And hopefully, I know before this fiscal year is over, but probably before May is over, because whoever gets to, they have to manufacture the pieces, and then they have to take out. In each part, it takes about 2 weeks to take out and put in. So we should have it probably completed. No, definitely by this fiscal year to be done.
Are we still looking at the possibility of putting a small pavilion down on the west end of that memorial park?
The mayor and I talked about it, and we discussed it, And we're gonna look at that in the next capital budget.
And then I know you and I talked about, in the Melissa's Park, redoing some of the roofs and the pavilion, the big pavilion there at the parking lot.
Okay.
Looking at maybe changing that over to a metal roof so we can extend the life of that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
And then Mark can address, South Side has been using the tennis courts at the south.
Right.
They have not been used a whole lot for some time, but they started, and Mark can address the fact that we got that in the capital to take care of that, because people want to play out there.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
If I could, Mr. Black, could you, in the future, look at probably doing a dog park over in East Jackson, at Shirley Mercer Park?
Dog park?
Yeah,
Sure, I can look at that. Sure.
I mean, 'cause a lot of people over in that area
Yeah.
got dogs running around, maybe we can get them somewhere to walk their dog. It might help out a little bit, but if you can kind of look at,
I can tell you, if you would go to Shirley Mercer now, it's really, with the help of UT Ag and Tennessee State, they have put markers for the distance for walking. They donated a nice water fountain and bottle refill station. Of course, the Lynx, we're gonna dedicate their bench this Thursday, and we did that night. So it's really becoming one of the things, Tom, I appreciate, and we did meet, and there's a washout problem at the ditch that's right next to the park. It's constantly eating away, and pretty soon it's gonna get up to the sign, the nice brick sign. So he's looked at that and gonna try to help us kind of mitigate that problem, because it's washing out, and so I appreciate that. So, yeah. The dog park, people love it, the new dog park. We had to tell you how much they loved it. We closed it down to try to grow some grass, and they told us, we don't care about the grass, you need to open it back up on one side. And we were gonna do the small, and I told them, don't worry about the grass, just let the people go, so. We are doing the summer camp, we're gonna do our after-school program, and before the pandemic, we were going to meet with the superintendent to talk about the potential of us maybe staffing some after-school programs in some of the schools.
Right.
Because we are limited in the capacity we could take. We have a great relationship with the community Montessori school and the other surrounding schools, Arlington and Alexander. We pull kids for the after-school program. But we realize what happens is that in order to bus the kids, the school has to make a commitment to pay the busing fee. I didn't know that. They don't just bring them there, but the school makes a commitment. So we are going to, that was on the agenda to speak to them even for our summer camp. We started a teen summer camp, but with the pandemic, we shut it down. But Lane College has made a commitment for us to do it on their campus. We had a successful teen camp the first time we did it. We did it in the auditorium portion of the JCM campus, the Cougars. But now we're going to do that on Lane's campus. And so we're trying to do that. We plan to do it.
Can you give me just a quick overview of how, because this has been an issue that I've been dealing with for the last couple of weeks. I know it's in the recreation budget, but like as far as groundskeeping, as far as like within a city park?
Groundskeeper, what, the relationship?
Yeah, like if you've got guys on the ground, right?
No,
No,
You don't have
groundskeeping
anybody?
is on its own standalone
groundskeeper
department.
is a separate department now. They were under recreation parks, but their primary function is the park, the taking care of the park and the ball field.
Okay.
But they do some right-of-way cutting also, groundskeeping. But, I mean, it hasn't affected their ability to do what they're supposed to do with the parks.
Okay.
That
But I
they-
mean, like, if you've got staff at the parks, right? I mean, you've got people that are there, like at North Park, you got a guy,
That's groundskeeping. He's on the ground.
he's under groundskeeping, okay. So the guy that turns the lights on and off, he's under groundskeeping?
No, he works for us.
Works for us.
Okay, right, so you got people at the parks, right?
Working for the soccer programs, yes.
Right, so when we see the grass get so high where we can't play, who's calling?
That's groundskeeping.
Yeah, but who's calling to let them know they need to get
Skip will let them know.
Okay.
They always have had that on a regular schedule, and, sometimes they're not able to mow.
Let me tell you what happened. I can tell you, they're doing leaf pickup now. And we addressed that, because the mayor was concerned, and I was concerned too, because when they were under me, I could kind of say, hey, but they were doing leaf pickup, and it's been the best year they've had in picking up leaves without any minimal problems. They didn't stop leaf pickup until March the 1st. Not March 1st, when was it, Mayor? 31st. So they got behind on the cutting because they were still doing the leaf pickup. But that's caught up now.
We're addressing that on several areas. They're gonna, Frank and JD are gonna give me specs and cost on equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm of the opinion that we can mow the weeds over and over again, but if we treat the grass and actually have grass, that cuts down the number of times that we have to mow.
Right.
And so as we're gonna look at more equipment to allow them to spray. We only have one ride-on sprayer now for our groundskeeping. They're also partnering with the Sports Flex staff to look at the fields. But the more equipment that they can have, and we just told them we're gonna look at needs, we're gonna look at assignments to be able to make sure that they have enough. And if they don't have enough, then we're gonna figure out how we get them enough.
Right.
To take care of those grounds, because like I told Tony and Frank and JD, that if it looks like we don't care,
Yeah.
then that trickles down to everyone else. So we have to look like we care, because I know we do care, we just have to look like it.
Yeah.
And they normally, they do a great job. They just got behind in the rain, but they're caught up now. Pretty much caught up.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know
Which
about
area?
that,
Where?
because I'm out there every day, so I don't know about that.
Where?
But yeah, I think that's where we've
Where
got
that- Which park is that?
North Park.
North Park.
So what, we've got all these facilities, we got all these parks, but like at North Park, we had the baseball fields, but we let them grow over, and now they're just grass. It would seem to me like if the Sportsplex is like a grade A, I mean, you go out there, it's like dadgum, like Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. And you go to another park and it's like dirt. We need some grades on, and I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but if the Sportsplex is grade A, we need other sports facilities that are maybe a grade B, where you can go and you can practice. Like, if I wanted to do dirt infield practice, where do I gotta go? I gotta go out to the county field to play, right? I don't know if we have a dirt infield that's maintained anywhere else inside the city. Right? Same thing with our soccer fields, and I've been, gradually complaining a little bit louder and louder, but it gets to the point where it's like, if we can't kick a soccer ball and it go 10 foot, then we got a problem. And so my question to you was, if we've got guys that are employed by the Parks and Recs Department that are out there, and they see that it's getting out, somebody needs to be notifying somebody and saying, hey, the grass is too tall to play, let's get somebody over here to mow it. And so I'm curious about how the communication is happening, or the lack thereof. Because it's a big concern, especially when we have people renting the fields, So that would be a suggestion, is that we really work on that communication and we establish some kind of tiered system.
I think that's there anymore.
Skip Jones is our longtime on-site supervisor, especially for soccer. He communicates with maintenance and groundskeeping about issues that he has regularly.
Yeah.
He does that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got constituents, I've got worried parents that are calling me, telling me things, and I'll be frank, I mean, it's embarrassing. Like, you get out there and I call up and it's 2-3 weeks and we're still in the same spot. And it's like, who do I need to get a hold? Do I need to pull my own mower over there and mow the field?
We wouldn't stop you.
Huh? I know, no one would stop me, that's what I'm saying, but that's where I've had to get
So
to,
what I
is
say to
taking
that
on
is,
this stuff myself. And,
he makes it known and they're not responding, then I will follow up with them for sure.
okay,
But if it doesn't get to me, then I can't let them know, but he has made that contact with them. And oftentimes, generally in the past, we've never had that type of issue. I mean,
Right.
I'm being honest.
Yeah.
To the degree where people are calling and complaining about the field, the soccer field and the
Right.
ball fields, that has not happened. Now, we have Muse Park, which people still use to practice for softball, basically. Then Toe Bailey Park, which used to be for the little league of the older kids, well, that died out, but that field is still well maintained, because the middle schools, they still playing on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're still playing on it, so I
Yeah,
And then at Centennial, we've got 2 fields there. As a matter of fact, I've allowed a county league team to practice down there during the pandemic when we went there. Of course, nobody fields were upkept during pandemic time.
Right.
But those fields are well maintained.
Right.
Over at Centennial, we got a T-ball and coach pitch field, and then we have a player pitch field. But I hear you. And
okay. I mean,
Melissa's fields, they're well maintained.
I feel like I've been beating my head against the wall for a couple of weeks, and,
Well, we
you
won't
know,
let you beat your head against the wall.
well, I appreciate it, because I'm serious. I mean, I'll bring my mower over there and mow it if I have to.
Yeah.
You know, but I should have to get
I'll
down to
follow up
that.
on that, and particularly North Park, I will, but they should be caught up.
Yeah,
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Okay.
that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay.
Any other questions for Recreation
We will
and
take
Parks?
care of it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Tom.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Next up is Health and Sanitation.
You gonna get that one?
Yeah, I mean, if I gotta do everything myself.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The leaves fell in October.
So I'm just gonna give a quick recap of '21, since we just went over the solid waste. Everybody kinda knows what we do. Our department was impacted by COVID and bulk waste operations. Of course, that increased, bulk waste increased. The solid waste collections in commercial and small businesses, some of which decreased services due to temporarily closures. We have operated shorthanded, but still managed to pick up 40,500 bulk waste piles in 9 months. We've picked up over 2,500 tires. We've hauled over 4,500 pounds of recycled metals and over 313 pounds of paper and cardboard from the recycle bins. We've upgraded, of course, our work order system. That's helped to provide data for contractor accountability and our city services. And at this time, we do not have any penalties to report, but we are going to begin a quarterly report with the new solid waste contract. We plan to do that. We have seen an increase in our electronic billing for commercial invoicing, which cut back a few dollars with postage. They're now being emailed instead of being mailed. And we are utilizing the collection agency for collecting on past due accounts. So our past due accounts are looking really good. We've not been fully staffed. We lost 3 equipment operators and we have replaced 2. You'll probably see an increase in our salaries because in '21, we had an equipment operator 3 to resign in the middle of the budget proposals, and that was not included in that budget. So we had to add that to this year. We ended up bringing back a utility 1 worker for dead animal services. We took that back over from Animal Care Center. And we've recently had a group leader 5 to transfer, and we will be replacing them with an administrative specialist, which is in process right now.
Okay.
So that should cover the increases of the salaries that you see. We've really had no other change in the budget for 2020 or 2022. There is a couple of slight increases with landfill, but those are increases that go, I think, in January, they increase every year.
Is that indexed? I mean, is that, or how is that?
I believe it's off of the CPIU.
Okay. Okay. The question I keep having, and we've had some conversations about this, is what is the cost with us taking on the bulky waste, the additional percentage, and you know, the coverage, and I know we feel confident that we got that coverage for that first year of the contract. But what is the, you know, what is that cushion that we have moving forward? And, you know, are there areas of efficiency that we could drive in bulky waste, bulky waste collection. I think our residential rate's locked. The dumping rate is indexed. So the only couple of things we have under control there are bulky waste collection, animal collection, and there may be some, one other thing that we take care of, in that. What are your thoughts on how we can, I know bulky waste is, it's to the point where, it's somewhat counterintuitive, that we're giving an unlimited service, which in turn, people bring their stuff to the street, and we're constantly having to pick up stuff on the street.
Right.
Are there talks about moving towards a different model with that? Or are we gonna try this year to continue the unlimited service? Where are we at on this?
Well, we're exploring a lot, I mean, we're having to deal with the ordinances along with this new contract, so we are exploring that with the city attorney about what we can do. Bulk waste is unlimited right now, and, by ordinance, there's just no limitations.
Yeah.
And we can certainly make that happen. It would cut back. We are also enforcing a lot of the contractor and the landlord ordinances.
Yeah.
And we're having to work really closely with the building department because they're the ones that have the inspectors, summons them into the environmental court, help us take care of that.
Mr. Mayor? Leilani, hey, some of this is just, I want to catch up and understand. The bulky waste, I thought we were only doing that twice a month. So now since the city has taken that over, that's unlimited, they can put something out there any day of the week and expect that to be picked up within that week?
I don't think that's how that was interpreted. There's no limitation as to how many times you can actually put bulk waste at the curb. I think the last contract or the current contract, however that was worded, was that Waste Management or the contractor was supposed to provide twice a month pickup. It wasn't necessarily a limitation to the bulk waste of how many times there's no limitation to that, according to ordinances.
Okay.
What are we communicating currently to residents? How often we'll pick up?
Just when they call and complain.
I think something like
Is
the
there not a-
route system,
Do what now?
the route system.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our claw trucks on.
Yes,
The route
okay,
system helps.
so
That's what I understood.
we're averaging about 3 to 4 weeks. Every 3 to 4 weeks, we're getting around every street,
Okay.
every
That's-
area. I mean, there is a truck in every district. Some even have 2 trucks, depending on what kind of volume we're looking at.
Again, I'm just trying to learn, but it seems like there should be some way that we could state that it is only every 2 to 3 weeks or.
Absolutely,
around-
there is.
Okay, and then the other thing that I was wondering about, and you mentioned working with the city attorney. So are we now going to try to, make, maybe let's call them the landlords of these areas? Are we about to try to find them? Or what process are we looking at that, or we can show them we really mean business other than
We're already in
calling them?
operations of that. We've sent letters, lots of the fourplexes are now having to pick their own and dispose their own waste off where we were actually servicing them, and that's a commercial unit.
But there's not, they haven't been fined.
No, because before we can get them into court, they're removing it.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So with the new upcoming contract and how we as a city will take on all bulky waste, are the costs for that, those are included in the current numbers? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and we have enough in there that we'll be able to handle
Oh,
that?
yes. We kind of did a rough estimate. We are still in the process of working with Bobby to get like exact numbers and breakdowns for everyone to look at. But just a rough cost for us to operate yearly with what we have is $600,000. That's just a rough estimate. That's our salaries, our landfill, the fuel, the maintenance cost of the trucks.
I can understand that. I don't see how you could even project that yet until you get into it, really, and then be able to maybe project that cost.
Right. This is just current
Right.
of how we, got the rough
I think we're
estimate.
gonna have to have some patience with that. That's
Well,
just my opinion.
We've been doing 80% of Waste Management's work.
Right,
So,
anyway.
We just need to increase, basically extrapolate that out to 100% and try to understand what that cost is, and then divide that by 12 and divide that by every resident that we're servicing to really understand what that fee would be back to the resident. I don't think it's a difficult exercise. I just think it's, having some good numbers to be able to do it. But we need to be able to and the communication piece is the other part, and I was gonna ask you and maybe Alex from the mayor's office, where we're at on communicating the changes to the solid waste, what we're providing to residents. And I'm assuming that's coming, I don't know. Could you speak to that?
Just a little while ago, we set up a meeting for tomorrow to meet with Ms. Paris to get our hands on the deliverables, and I'll update everybody on a meeting after that.
I can't reiterate how important this is.
Sure.
I mean, not only for their sanity, but for the city's sanity.
Right.
To be able to communicate clearly, exactly what we're getting, what the residents are getting, and how it's gonna be delivered, and how do they opt in if they have a disability or something that's gonna prohibit them from bringing it down. It's a huge concern.
And we got the forms completed for those to fill that out, so
Okay,
it's coming together now, and hopefully it'll be very, very soon.
okay, thank you.
Is this on public, so we need to say, twice a month for bulk?
Yeah, well, that's the question. I mean, is like, do we need to put some limitation, we sat on we evaluated these proposals, I called around to a bunch of municipalities and asked them, not only like, hey, I see you're using Republic or Red River or Waste Management, how are you doing, and getting references, but I also asked them about how they do bulk waste. And I didn't come across anybody that's doing unlimited bulk waste. And so, I know that's a luxury, but, is there something that we need to put, once a month, once a quarter, whatever, put some limitation on it? Some of them that I saw were managing, hey, and I know you know this because we've had some discussion, y'all are tracking what residences are having the pickups. So it doesn't seem to me that even if we went to, not everybody uses bulk waste, but everybody pays for bulk waste.
Right.
And so if there's a more equitable way to do it, where it's, maybe you get one a quarter and your other ones, there's a fee associated with it. But there has to be some way to fix that, because that's one cost that is really outside of our control, because it comes down to who's putting waste and if they're hauling it off or not, and we'll never catch up.
Right.
I mean, so we have to figure that out.
Is it under your all's control to be able to say, once we introduce this August 1st, that maybe only once a month is bulky waste? Again, I'm just educating myself,
That
but would that
council
be?
to pass an ordinance.
That would be
Right.
on us.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, maybe for something that's happened immediate, maybe in the next 4 weeks, hopefully, will be the tracking for the claw trucks that'll be on our website, so people can go on there and see where they are, see where they've been, see where they're going, and it'll have a little forecasting, say it should be there within this next day. So I'm hopeful that'll be a piece of it as well.
thank you.
All right, any other questions for Leilani or Chris? Oh, Bobby has something.
So I've been working with Leilani and Chris on the questions about cost coverage. We've been working to understand what their costs actually are, which costs are fixed, which costs are variable, that type of thing. We kind of where we've kind of got bogged down recently is in understanding or determining what an appropriate metric or unit to relate that to. So it's a little bit, clear on the residential side. There were, assumptions made about how many residential customers, we will be servicing over the course of the year. Of course, that number changes daily. It's a little bit more complicated on the commercial side, because on the commercial side, there are different charges for different levels of service. The container that you have may be larger or smaller, you may be once a week, or twice a week, or once a month. So we're working to try to determine that metric of unit of service in order to base the cost charge analysis on. That's kind of where we are in the process. So we'll get there. You know, they, within the solid waste department, our solid waste fund, they have, certain overhead costs. Had some discussion with the mayor in passing, before we finish the budget process. We may want to make a decision about, an appropriate, administrative and overhead allocation from the general fund to the solid waste fund for things like payroll and payables and information system support. So we're kind of working through that issue as well. I will, just as to give you some, and certainly Paul, you know, once we get that foundation laid and we understand what of our costs are indexed and how much capacity we have to continue to take on additional bulky waste, or what happens to our costs if we limit in some way the bulky waste pickups, so we can forecast into the future better. We're kind of laying that foundation now. Just in the way of trying to give the council some level of assurance about where we are now. In the FY '20 fiscal year audited numbers, the solid waste fund generated a surplus. So they're budgeted for a surplus for the current fiscal year that we're in right now. If you look at the numbers through March, they are on target to generate a surplus this year. If you look at the proposed budget for FY '22 right now, it reflects a proposed surplus in the solid waste fund. So that should give us some comfort level about where we are now. Now, when we start projecting costs and charges 2, 3, 4 years out, that can be a different story. And that's the reason we need this consensus of what our unit of service is gonna be, and kind of that foundation that we're working on now. But I think right now we're okay for that. And I would also point out, when you review the budget for the solid waste fund this year, the solid waste fund, there's some capital outlay notes from the past that were used to purchase equipment for the solid waste fund. So the debt service related to those pieces of equipment, that's funded in the solid waste fund itself. It's not in the debt service fund. Also, the capital requirements for next year. The solid waste fund is carrying the cost of their capital request or capital needs for next year as well within that fund. And we're currently, right now, the budget calls for a surplus for next year. Of course, we'll have to, comply with that budget, right? So volumes and revenues will need to be where we project them to be, and costs will need to be adjusted accordingly. But from a budget standpoint, it looks okay right now.
Okay,
Thought I would offer that.
thank you.
Well,
Leilani, so when we take on this, are we assuming that, you know, I know they were running 2 or 3 trucks. Are we assuming we're gonna have to take on some additional, operational expenses and from salaries to run 2 more trucks? I know that, I kinda see where Bobby's headed, that there are gonna be additional capital needs. I know, talking to you, you got a truck that's kinda on the fritz, you know, or do we wanna ride out with what we got for this year and see how it goes, and then move next year?
Yeah, like I said, when we projected the 80% of services that we provide, it's probably a little bit more than that. They do provide 2 trucks, 2 operators, but they only run 4 days a week.
Right.
And that's if they are fully staffed. So you know, I don't have any way of managing that or knowing when they do have a truck running full-time in those areas. So basically, we probably cover a little bit more than 80% of that.
Okay.
I would project that we might need one additional operator. You know, right now we have, fully staffed, we would have 8.
Okay,
Right now we have 7
okay.
in my department, so we
So
just
you,
had to.
so you're
one-
looking for one right now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll just kind of file that away as a maybe for next year
Right.
after we see where we're getting with this new contract.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then maybe like if we start working on the ordinances and some of those ordinances do change,
that can impact
Mhm.
staffing levels
Sure.
too.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, any other questions for Leilani and Chris? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Civic Center Home and Arena.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Be glad to answer any questions you guys might have.
Quickly,
I was going to say, talk about where we were last year, staff down, no events, staffing up, events, revenue expenditures that we have proposed for this coming year.
could you kind of run us through, like, obviously, we shut down for a while, didn't have anything. So are we projecting 20, I guess that would be 2020 revenues back up?
22.
From 2020.
From
or-
2020.
Yeah, 2020
Yeah.
revenues back up.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen, so with the restrictions lifted in April, you know, the Symphony came in and they added tables just because of their restriction was lifted. So we're seeing, I mean, the phone hasn't stopped ringing since the restrictions have been lifted. So with the revenue side of it, I really went back a year prior and kind of tried to do a very calculated effort instead of just throwing a number out there of events that we had that we know come back every year that are annual fundraisers, and then the 5 or 6 concerts that we may have a year and kind of what that revenue generates. So the budget number as far as the operating side, I'm just trying to narrow that gap a little bit between operating and revenue. Obviously, I think you all understand as a public facility, it's not gonna be in that size and open all the time. It's never gonna be a profit-making machine, but we can do our best to kind of narrow that gap between the two. But I do see the projected revenues being ahead of target.
Josh, real quick, talk about the how we minimize that on the base nonprofit as opposed to just making a decision per event. We have nonprofit rate that everyone.
Right, so every nonprofit gets a 25% discount on building rental only. Equipment is billed out the same for everybody, no matter what. And now we're getting a little more specific about our fees. That really hadn't been done in the past, and so we're looking at, you know, it's no longer $1,600 to get you in the door, and you have free access to anything. $1,600 is a very specific area. You go outside of that area, and there's gonna be fees associated with that. So that's part of gaining some of that revenue back that we've lost over however many years.
Ask a question.
Mhm.
Will you address the repairs and kind of talk through that between the two facilities and where you're seeing the repairs need to be?
Right now, and we've actually got something in the works at the Civic Center with HVAC. That's really that and the risers still need some work done to them, but the HVAC, we had a unit completely go out that operates half of my air handlers. So half of them, if I want them on, I physically go into the room and I push a button, whereas other times I can schedule them through a software on the computer. So that's en route to be fixed. We've already got that approved and got the quotes. But as far as that's concerned, that's the main issue, and there are some issues over at Omen as well, HVAC wise. Structural, I mean, there could be a lot.
Councilman,
Structural.
you talking about the repair and maintenance line item in the budget? Yeah, so that is opposed, we can talk, capital's not on there, so we can talk about what's in your line item for repair and maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, and that repair and maintenance supplies, I mean, that's everything from duct tape to ceiling tiles to everything. Repair and maintenance services is if our maintenance department can't do something, we pay for things out of that line item for contractors to come in and fix things that our maintenance department can't fix. So that's where that money goes out to.
Is there any thought to cosmetic changes? And really, I'm speaking of the Civic Center.
There is, we've done some already to try to improve that. I'd love for you to come by and see our loading dock that used to be completely unusable, that now can be a specific rented space. We did a
Right.
Leadership Jackson event in the loading dock.
Oh, yeah.
So we are trying to, instead of the old saying of putting lipstick on a pig, we're trying to really be conscious of what we're doing. We've swapped out all the lights, almost every light in that building, to LED, so it's brighter, it looks better, it's cleaner. I mean, during the time that we had off from events not being in there, it's probably the cleanest it's been in a long time. But cosmetically, I mean, I don't know what all you could do. There's tons that you could do to it. It's just a matter of how much you want to spend doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Tosh on Civic Center and Omen Arena?
Josh, from the events, like, I know we talked about a lot of nonprofit stuff, especially locally, and I would assume that will come back pretty quickly, but the other events that may help make up that gap in revenue, with restrictions nationally, you know, a different story, are we anticipating some of those coming back? Or have you seen any?
Yeah,
Or is it too soon to understand that yet?
Yeah, we've had some of our concert venues that are like in Nashville. Our promoters have reached out to us about this current year, bringing some folks in. Where we've scheduled almost like, you remember the boat show that used to be at Civic Center? So we've scheduled a Jeep Expo.
Okay.
You like that? That's coming into the Civic Center, so it's gonna be like a big off-road expo.
Yeah.
Who say you
So-
can't buy another one?
Yeah. But yeah, we
You
are.
just keep on
To
going.
answer your question, we're, all of our people, when they send me an email, they say, what Fridays and Saturdays do you have available from now until, 6 months down the road?
Gotcha.
So they're wanting to come back.
Cool.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, Robert? I don't even plan this stuff, it just happens. I know, it's natural, man. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's the same thing, Tosh talked about, not having events, and then staffing and revenues, those changes from this past year to this year.
Our operating's pretty well the same as it has been. I do want y'all to notice under our 240 line item, our utilities and sanitation, I'm projecting 73,000, which I'm saying is conservative. Usually our utilities are around 96,000, up in the 90s. I'm projecting that given that we get the capital to do the LED project. So we get that, and those are just the lamps on the inside of the main building. And as you can imagine, especially when the flea market's there, those bulbs stay on all night, all weekend, from Friday to Sunday. So if we cut that demand down with those LED bulbs, it's gonna dramatically cut our utilities. I just said 73,000. I think it'll be less. But that's given we do that. Everything else is,
Yeah, going on what Councilman Wallace talked about on cosmetics, can you just update the council on what you and your staff have done in the time of kitchen area and repainting and all that?
oh gosh, we went throughout our concessions. The tile in there was, cooking grease. You can imagine. So we thought, you know what? We've got this concrete slab. Let's just pull that tile out. And we rolled on, it's a gritty type surface where we painted that so that, in case it was slick in there, it's not slick. It's got a good grip to it. Painted everything, went through the entire concession stand. Our bathrooms, the exhibit hall's office. I don't know if y'all may have noticed some of the, we did a lot of cosmetic stuff to the bathrooms. We did some aluminum, stainless steel countertops, laid tile that looks like hardwood that's in those bathrooms. I went with black, painted them black. Somebody was like, well, I don't know, isn't that gonna be kinda dark? And it's like, well, when it's pitch black and you flick on a lighter, it's pretty bright, and I think it looks nice. So we've done a lot of stuff. We painted around the facility, cleaned up. It looks better now that groundskeeping's got down there, and got everything back in shape. But we've been full bore since the restrictions have left. Just to give you an idea, we deposited nearly $15,000 into revenue yesterday. And so we've got another 5,600 that's just in the works. We'll hit our mailbox, so we are full bore. Like Tosh said, just to echo everything that he said that he's experiencing, we are too. It has been nonstop phone calls. People are wanting to book. So,
Yeah, I see here you got, some additional salary. Could you talk to that?
yeah, that's Tina Kennard. She was with us for a little over a year, part-time. And the full-time secretary, Deanne Ellis, she's had some health complications and health issues. And so she has been out on family medical leave. And happy to report she's won her battle. And
Awesome.
so
Great.
she is in phase 2 of going back, and she's had some surgeries that she's had to undergo. And so she's been out for several months. And Tina, can't say that I blame her. She's been with us for a year, and filling Deanne's void. And she came to me and said, "Hey, I really enjoy this, but I really need to have a full-time job, and I've had an offer somewhere else, and I'll stay for as long as I can." So talked to the mayor, and I said, "Look, she's done a great job, and Deanne's fixing to be out for several months. We've trained her. She does an excellent job, and so we brought her on full-time."
Okay.
And I can't say for sure how much longer that Miss Ellis will stay on. I think in time she's gonna probably go home and be with her family, but
Yeah.
she's got just a little bit until I think she is vested through the retirement system.
Okay.
And I think that when she gets that,
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
that's why that's there.
All right.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Last up, got Sportsplex.
Mayor, council, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I guess I can give just kind of a brief where we've been over the last, just like Tosh and John Robert, 2020 obviously was a huge detriment to us with the shutdown during our most opportune time that we normally see our tournaments going really in April and May. We were in 21, we were able to start back there in the middle of June and play through 21 in times that travel teams normally, and travel and baseball teams especially, don't play. There's usually some time off in July before they start their fall season, but we just kept going. We, to date, I was looking at this from our last budget hearing, I think on June 19th, we have welcomed, let's see, I'll make sure I get it right. 942 teams since June 19th of last year, and in a very conservative number for the rest of April, May, June, we should be over 1,200 teams in a 365-day period, starting there in late June, going all the way through in a year. And you know, some tournaments are large, some tournaments are small, but even the small ones, we're getting teams out there. We're getting traffic out there. The other thing that we have done is started opening our fields up for practice, which had never been done before. And this spring, it's caught on more, where in a given week, we'll have 10 or so teams practicing on a couple of our fields. We try to rotate it. We don't want the whole complex just because of the repairs on trying to get ready for the weekend. But we'll have 10 or so teams coming out, providing a little bit of revenue, but also, more importantly, providing traffic out to the exit and to the businesses that are out there for a reason.
Are those travel league teams that are?
There's most of,
local
yes,
travel-
there's the local traveling teams that are out there practicing in all different age groups. We've had some softball teams, and we have had a league team already that has contacted just saying, hey, we don't like our time slot over at Oakfield, and the parent said, hey, we'll chip in $5 a piece and come out and practice just at a more convenient time for them instead of the one they got assigned. So, you know, I think that's going to continue to grow, and that's what it's there for. In looking at, you know, what I really went off of in looking at our 22 budget was trying to go back to our last normal year, which 2020 wasn't, 2021 hasn't been, but going back and really looking at our 19 numbers, and then going off of that, we are going to have 8 to 9 additional events scheduled than what we had in 19. Again, having 20 events a year is not going to cut it. That's ridiculous. We can have and play more in the fall. We can do more things even in July. Even if it's not travel baseball, we're going to have girls softball keeps playing, so we're going to have more softball-only events. This year, we're getting to host the Babe Ruth 13-year-olds Southeast Regional in late July, which is going to bring teams from all over the Southeast. But yet, just another, we attempted to have the Dixie Youth Girls Softball State Tournament around the July 4th weekend, but Rick Shackelford couldn't make the age groups for a host team, so we're going to wait until he can have the host team together, and then we will host the girls softball state events as well. As much as we can possibly keep our doors open, we want to do that. I think my budget for 22 is actually down about 2% from my budget for 21 overall. And, you know, again, it's us trying to grow revenue, just as Tosh made the comment, trying to grow revenue, but manage the expenses so that the gap is that the city is investing in the economic impact in the Sportsplex gets a higher return on investment by the way we can control that. And just this year, from what I have forecasted, again, it's really hard when you look at annualized numbers for us, because when you see annualized numbers in March, you're missing April, May, June, which is our biggest months. So Mr. Arnold had me go and do some forecasts on revenue for where my best guess to finish the year was going to be. And then I actually took it a step further and have been working on going line by line on making an expense forecast as well. And you know, it looks like that our net operating loss is going to be about $30,000 better than what was budgeted, but it's also about $211,000 better than what we were in FY19. So we are closing that gap of what the investment of the economic impact of the Sportsplex is. And I understand that we've got to continue to grow and get more teams and more teams. And my staff has done a wonderful job. I mean, we were reduced a couple positions, which, you know, we're doing more with less right now. And as far as my seasonal staff goes, it's hard to find people right now who want to come out and do some of the jobs I have on the fields, concession stands at the rate that we pay. But we're getting by. There's 30-hour weekends for a lot of us, but we're doing it, and we're going to continue, hopefully, as travel starts really coming back, because again, we've done this with a lot of people not comfortable with traveling really outside the region. And so I think that's only going to go to show where we're headed. And the other really good positive right now too, and there's silver linings in everything, is that our gate receipts right now per team is tremendously higher than what it has been at any point. You know, our average gate right now per team is around $384 a team in gate receipts. If you take this year out of the equation, we would be somewhere around 225. And, you know, when you talk about so far, in just this spring with that 294 teams, you know, I mean, that's $30,000 of extra revenue in gate receipts. And a lot of that has to do with is grandma and grandpa didn't go watch the grandkids play last year. Aunts and uncles didn't travel to go see their nephews and nieces play last year, where now everybody's coming because they missed it last year of watching their grandkids and nephews and nieces play. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to address.
Yeah, you're checking the boxes of the questions I was gonna ask. You know, one of the things, as you kind of look at your, expenses on the gate and what revenue you can get off the gate. I know on some of these tournaments at other facilities, they'll wrap that into the tournament fee. And I don't know if you've looked at what that, if there's a potential for savings on expense side and capturing like an equal amount of revenue.
Yes, Councilman. The mayor and I had this conversation back several weeks ago, and we looked into that, and I made a few phone calls. Some have done that, but I know Clay Ritchie down in Oxford tried it one time, and it was such a detriment to his tournament because a lot of these coaches, they don't want to fool with collecting the money. They just want to go coach, parents play. We talked to Scotty Baker, and he advised vehemently against it. He said, you will lose teams. And in looking at it, most of the ones, because in softball, they will do that in some cases. But the most that I've ever seen someone do is add a couple $100, because that would take an entry fee for us, say around $300 to make it $500.
Right.
Well, that sticker shock is there, but you really couldn't do more than 200. But on the numbers, I actually did that if we would have done 250 this year thus far, we would have left about $39,000 on the table.
Okay.
And the most, and if we're running wide open on every gate, full blast, the most I'm going to pay a gate worker and combined in a weekend for an entire 3-day tournament, I'm going to spend about $1,330. So right now, I'm getting about a 6-to-1 ratio return on that gate worker for the extra dollars, not the original 225 or 250, but on the extra money, we're getting about a 6-to-1 return on that.
Okay. On the number that you gave on the 12, you were projecting to be about 1,200 teams annual for this year, or this past season?
Right, and that's going in a 365-day period, so it kind of dips into a little bit to keep apples to apples. I didn't want our games that we had last July that kind of ran up until when our normal fall season would have started.
Right.
Those went into 2020 numbers because I didn't want to skew when we normally don't have those travel tournaments in July.
Right.
So you've got to kind of look at both of those numbers to see that. But if you're looking at a total 365-day, when we started basically minus one tournament when we started back, it's going to be around 1,200 teams in that period.
So if you were to look at it apples to apples, because you know this is something that I'm looking at.
Yes.
You know, and when you came on, we were where, like somewhere in like the 500s or like.
One of the things that I think you can kind of look at right now is, I've tried to break this, and I'm sorry. This looks a little bit better. We've got in 2020, which that is including some of those July 21, again, trying to keep apples to apples here. You know, with a total of 803 teams, but that was only 14 tournaments. So I've been kind of looking at average teams per tournament. So, you know, 2020, 57 teams per tournament. Right now, if you just count our fall and our spring so far, we're at 46. But if you look at 16, it was 40 for 20 tournaments, an average of 36 teams per 20 tournaments. 40 for 20 tournaments. So that average per tournament is increasing, and that's another thing that if we can just have more tournaments, no matter what, even if it is a smaller tournament, in 2018, again, we had 20 tournaments, 19, 20 tournaments. FY '20, that was 9 tournaments. And then FY '21, and again, that doesn't correlate completely. I'm looking at the total, just FY when I say this. We had 26, and I'm gonna have 28 scheduled in '22. So we're gonna be having something at the Sportsplex for exactly half, or, 28, I mean, more than half of the weekends in a calendar year, whereas before they were trying to stay between 19 and 20. And it's just trying to grow that as much as we can. And the other thing is, I mean, you can see what we're doing. Ryan has done a wonderful job on the scheduling, on making sure that we don't like to eliminate anybody from play on Saturday. We want everybody, if at all possible, back on Sunday, so that we're getting 2 to 3 days from every team. And I know before, I've heard, well, y'all aren't playing until midnight. Well, we're not eliminating people on Saturday anymore. We're starting earlier on Sunday, but we are making you stay overnight. We're making you come a couple different times and not just be able to show up on a Saturday, maybe get eliminated and go home. We want this to be a weekend event. And you can see that by the number of weekend passes that even we did last year, where there was 2,332 weekend passes, and we haven't seen that type of number since back in 2014 when they did 2,300.
The question I've got is on the bottom row here, where you've got, 46 average teams per tournament, 510. Obviously the peak year was that 2012, 2013.
Yes, sir.
Where we were at like 79 teams a tournament. That to me is like, that's, and even at that, that seems like we're about 85%, 90% capacity. You could even add in, if you look back over, what was that, 19, 18 tournaments, and you're talking about having 20, 28. So, my question to you is, if we're at 510 now, how, are you adding the 510 and the 803?
There's part of that 803, that's part of that 803.
In
That's
your 1,200 that you're
in that
talking about.
12-month period.
So like, where are we projected to end in what's highlighted in yellow?
We should be somewhere right now, and again, these are, I think, conservative numbers, that we will be at, around 825, and that's just based on what's booked now. Some of our summer tournaments are going to grow, but I don't want to throw numbers in there and again, it could deviate one way or the other. If we have a weekend like we had on March 26th, where we had 6 inches of rain over 2 days, that hurts us. But
Right.
This past weekend, we had 97 teams. 3 weeks ago, that tournament was setting at 50. So
Okay.
we added 40 teams in a matter of 3 weeks.
Okay.
So there's ebbs and flows in that. It can blow up and really help us. Mother Nature can kill us. And some of the things too is some of our competition have gotten some nice new shiny things that everybody's wanting to go pack and play, and we're fighting to get them here one way or another.
Right.
This past weekend, one of the things that we did is that we changed course and added a double points weekend for the World Series qualifier.
Right.
We paid just a little bit more to get
So
that.
you're almost
but-
100 there.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, we're doing those things now more, doing some bounce backs with people that if they play in one tournament, come back and play another tournament.
Yeah.
We're gonna get creative to get as many teams, and then bringing softball back, and I've looked at the softball numbers, back in 2015 and earlier. I mean, some of the softball tournaments were huge, but we had more fields that we could play softball on. Now we're down to 4 fields that we can play softball on. Our max for a tournament, you can maybe squeeze 24 softball teams in there and start at 8 and get done at midnight. I mean, I left the Sportsplex 2 weeks ago at 2:45 in the morning after softball got done. So we're trying, and again, that's with some capital improvements. Hopefully in the future, we're able to make some of those fields multi-use that we can play softball or baseball on, and we could go all out on as many softball teams as we needed. But
Are you ultimately getting at kind of the amount of teams per tournament, or having more tournaments, like?
Yeah, I mean, I
Is
think
that
you can
the-
get there either way.
Yeah.
You know, is that ultimately, I mean, this has changed a little bit because we've reclassified this. So this isn't in its enterprise fund anymore. So all of us up here are paying for this now, right? And so the way that I see it is that, like, if we're paying for it, we need to make sure that it's really driving home and that it's running good and we need to really be, the goal needs to be to get up to that 1,500 number. I mean, so I think we're about halfway there. And so we've got to figure out, you know, what we talked about last year was going to Middle Tennessee. And because it's untapped resource, geographically, we're right in the middle of, you know, I mean, like my kids play soccer in Memphis and all we play is Memphis teams. So we go to Nashville, all we play is Nashville teams. We have the opportunity here in every sport to be that bridge between those two sports communities. And I feel like we keep missing the point on it. And I'm hopeful that, you know, we can get some hustle in on getting over there and meeting these coaches, because there's some huge organizations that would come here. And a lot of them, while some of these facilities have the turf infields, and those are nice, and those help with your operation, but there's still a desire to play on that natural surface.
Agree.
And you know, the guys over there, like I said earlier with the Parks Department, I mean, the facilities are top notch. Yeah, do we need some shade? Yeah, I mean, we need shade. Do we need, but can we get to 1,000? Can we get to 1,100 without the capital improvements? We know, you know, before we buy the Ferrari, let's make sure we can drive, you know? And so my thing is, yeah, I think it's expanding the season so that you have, because the it's contingent on the weather. So if you have 28 events and, you know, 10 of them get rained out, you're still gonna be in the 18, 19, you know?
By
rather than-
increasing the participants in
Yeah,
the tournament.
yeah. And so you have to hustle the tournaments too.
Do you feel like softball is one of your growing areas?
Well, I mean-
Could that be an area to look at more? Is softball really growing?
I think so. I think, you know, there was a detriment to softball in the area when they stopped playing softball at the Sportsplex, is a number of local teams kind of dwindled a little bit because nobody would have a home game. And now with us doing those, but there is again, I have 4 fields that I can play softball on. And those are also some of the same fields that I play my 7 and 8 year old baseball coach pitch on. So if I do softball, I don't do 7 and 8, and the younger the kid, the more people that come, and the better off we are. I'd rather have an 8-year-old tournament than a 15-year-old tournament every day of the week. And so it's trying to balance those two, you know, but we want to do more softball, and hopefully setting that up to do more into the future when we can do more, hopefully. But there's definitely some growth there. I mean, where the numbers were before to where they are now, I mean, it's not even close. And we've got to grow that, you know, and I want to grow some of the other events that we can host in some World Series and some different things. And I think with Great Wolf on the horizon, you know, all of a sudden it's a destination, and that helps us become a destination place. That's our beach, and we can really grow and be able to recruit and have more events and more teams because of that. You know, it's one of those, you know, and Commissioner Taylor, Councilman Taylor, we have, you know, we're making some inroads in Nashville with the Knights organization, with Mad Mavericks, and creating those relationships. And, you know, COVID kind of hurt a little bit on being able to get out on travel and going out and people a little more, especially in the Middle Tennessee area, to try to go build those relationships more than over the phone. But there have been some inroads laid, and hopefully going into this next year when it's a whole lot easier for us to get over there to be able to take their organization, their coaches out and get them over here. But we did see, you know, we have seen more teams from Middle and East Tennessee than we've ever seen. A lot of that, you know, I mean, a lot of that was they were shut down, so they had nowhere else to play, so they came here and gave us a try and had a good experience. I mean, our customer, you know, we try to treat teams as great as they possibly can be treated. And I know for years, there was a scar on the reputation of some of the service, and we've tried to change that culture more than anything on people enjoying when they come to Jackson to play at the Sportsplex. And, you know, we want them, we're trying to grow the number as much as we possibly can, while managing our expenses. And really, you know, I had the conversation, I think, with you probably 2 years ago on really running this like a business, and that's what we have to do. I want it to be I want it to self-sustain itself. I mean, I think, you know, but at the very least, I want to shorten that gap so that taxpayer investment onto the economic impact is as great as it possibly
That's
can
right.
be.
That should be the goal.
Absolutely.
Right, is,
Yeah,
you know,
great.
for every dollar that we put in, we need to make sure we're getting $2, $3, $4 back.
I agree.
And, you know, youth sports is exploding right now. I mean, it is exploding. And we have a lot of opportunities to you know, expand this, to get up to, you know, to get back up to that 1,500 team number, and to and also to expand in other sports. I mean, there's other opportunities that other communities. You look at Cape Girardeau, you look at some of these, you know, doing indoor facilities. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and Jackson's suited because of its interstate access to be able to provide that. So I'm hopeful that you guys will get out and hustle those Middle Tennessee teams and really get, you know, incrementally. I'd like to see that number be at around 1,000 this year, and then we could step up another 100 the next year, another 100 the next year, and another 100 the next year until we can get back up there. But, you know, we'll see kind of how it shakes out at the end of this year.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions for Jason?
Can you provide us with your annual spreadsheet showing the number of teams you got this year?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
If
Yes,
you
sir.
wouldn't just mind emailing that to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Jason.
All right, thank you.
All right, that concludes the items today. I think you look at a calendar. Budget committee meets what, Thursday?
We meet Thursday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, day after tomorrow.
In the meantime, we're working over on numbers corrections and getting those together, and so we can have something more concrete to present to council as we get that, and still waiting for guidance from the Treasury on American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, I know we're waiting on a lot of stuff. I guess my question is, as we start to finalize or get some of these numbers corrected from, you know, fire department last week, and these numbers kind of compiled. Mayor, do you see you and your staff going back through and putting a proposal together on where we need to be? I mean, it looks like right now, if we looked at total revenue versus expenses, you know, we're definitely in a debt with what's on the screen now, a deficit. And so do we anticipate budgeting that way, or do we anticipate kind of going through with a sharp pencil and dialing that in?
We'll go through with a Sharpie.
Sharpie,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, so I would remind everybody on the revenue side, as I shared with you all last Thursday, you know, those are conservative numbers, you know, I hope. I checked actually this morning with MTS and the state, and you know, they're like us, they're not sure about their revenues as well for next year, so. Information related to state shared revenues is still not available, projection is still not available yet. They tell me any day now. Since last Thursday when we met, we have closed the month of March, so we've updated those schedules that you all been looking at for March numbers and March annualized, and we have made some of the modifications to the annualized numbers, you know, where it makes sense, you know, to do so. So March will be the last, that'll be the numbers we'll have to work with, right? So we can't wait until April's closed and then meet our deadline. So we're gonna have to work with March's numbers.
Okay.
So my highest priority from my perspective, right now, I believe all of the changes that surfaced with the police and the fire department and a couple other departments on Thursday, we've updated the schedules for those. So we can accommodate changes on the expense side. You know, we're geared up to do that pretty, you know, rather easily. But the priority now for me and for us, I think, will be to try to tie our revenues down. And some of those revenues, sources, streams, we're just gonna have a discussion about sales tax.
Yeah.
About hotel motel tax. I've had a preliminary discussion with Lori about hotel motel tax, and they're thinking a 5% increase. But, you know, they're being really conservative, I think, and, you know, and she acknowledged that, and they're not ready to put their foot on the base yet on the hotel motel tax, but discussion about that, discussion about sales tax. You know, the property tax is, you know, it's, you know, there may be a couple of $100,000 or so between the general fund and the debt service fund. You know, you check the assessed value, it changes every day, right? And, you know, I know the appeals process is getting ready to start.
Yeah, that's when you're gonna see the change.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, property taxes are at best gonna be very small amount of growth, probably flat. So we just need to tie the revenues down, and that will direct us in how much we need to do, I think, on the cost side.
And in conjunction with that conversation, I know we're still in the beginning, putting it together, it's a process, right? But from a capital standpoint, I know the budget committee has started looking at some of that, but this particular council as a whole hasn't seen that. And as we've seen, some department heads say, you know, well, if I get this in capital, then X to my, you know, expenses. How do we anticipate dealing with that, scheduling, seeing all that as a whole big picture?
We have, right now, my office has essentially two capital budgets. One is a bare bones capital budget, assuming that we can't use a single dollar for American Rescue Plan for capital. And then the other is American Rescue Plan capital budget. So, as soon as we get guidance from that, then, I'll, you know, if it's a combination of the two, then we'll adjust that and submit that. And for the budget committee to do it, I think I've sent that to the budget committee. And so, as we get guidance, and we'll adjust those numbers for capital as we get the guidance on what we can use.
Good, that's what I was wondering. That's
Yeah,
good.
I think I get where you're going, is there's, you know, if we buy a new piece of equipment, does it take additional personnel, or those kind of conversations that there could be operating costs
So
associated.
we've had those conversations with the department heads on the equipment needed.
Okay.
And a lot of them are replacement. Some of the new purchases will be an alternative, either using this or this at the time, so there won't be any new personnel utilized on that.
Okay. Well, let's cross our fingers on that American Rescue Plan. I can't believe it's taking this long.
I figure we get the money on the 12th and we get guidance on the 15th is my kind of feeling.
What about flooding money? Was there some
What,
flooding?
floods?
Where would that fall under?
Are you talking about stormwater management?
Right, there
Yeah.
was some money for different counties that was supposedly coming in. Where
Oh.
was
It's FEMA reimbursement, though, which you utilize on
Okay,
your costs.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, is there nothing else? Then
that? Oh, did y'all say we're meeting Thursday, this Thursday?
the budget
The budget
The
committee, yes,
budget
but you're more than
meeting,
welcome to join.
Okay,
Yep.
where and
It'll be, via Zoom.
Zoom? Okay, we
Well,
got that email.
Go to meeting at 11. Everybody should have gotten it.
Okay, we got the email now.
Yep. All right,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you all.
That's way better than
So when?
28 hours of pure meeting.
No and no, we're done.